How's it going, everyone? Roslyn here. With the release of Trails into Reverie right around the corner, at least as of the recording of this video, and with an unhealthy almost 300 total hours played of the game, I thought it would be a good idea to go over everything you need to know about this rather unique and important entry into the Kiseki series. I will start by going over Reverie's place and significance in the overall Kiseki narrative, after which I'll cover Reverie's cross-story system, including how it works and its restrictions. I will then have a brief section talking about what has changed with the battle system, and finally I'll have a section dedicated to the Revery Corridor and everything there is to know about it. Alright, so with that outline out of the way, let's go over everything you need to know about Trails into Reverie. Despite being one game and not part of an arc, Trails into Reverie is perhaps one of the most important games in the Kiseki series. For starters, it serves as a direct sequel and story continuation to Cold Steel 4, with the story picking up almost immediately after that game's ending. Chronologically, the prologue of Reverie actually takes place during the ending credits of Cold Steel 4, and the main story begins in earnest roughly 1 month after that. Reverie is actually so much of a continuation of Cold Steel 4 that if it wasn't for its other main purpose, the game could have just been titled Cold Steel 5. And speaking of that other main purpose, Reverie also serves as the prologue to the next arc in the series, Kurono Kiseki. The obvious aspect of this happens after you've completed both the main story and post-game of Reverie, after which you will unlock a number of story events that directly lead into Kurono Kiseki. However, what isn't readily apparent is just how integral the main story of Reverie is to the events of Kurono Kiseki and the series moving forward as a whole, with them forming the backbone of why that game's story plays out the way it does. Now, in addition to being a sequel to Cold Steel 4 and a prequel to Kurono Kiseki, Reverie does, to a lesser extent, serve as an epilogue of sorts to the Crossbell arc of games, Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure, as well as a general epilogue to the first half of the entire Kiseki narrative. Before we move on though, just a few notes that people may be interested in. As with previous titles in the series, if you have save data from past games, you will get bonus items. For Reverie, this includes having save data from the recently released Crossbell games, as well as both Cold Steel 3 and Cold Steel 4. Also, if you do happen to import your save data from Cold Steel 4, the character who you chose as Rain's love interest will also carry over, affecting some of the dialogue and character interactions in Reverie. Finally, you want to make sure that you got the true ending in Cold Steel 4. That game does make it pretty hard to miss its true ending, but just in case you didn't see it, you will want to, as it is the canon ending leading into Reverie. Alright, let's move on to the cross-story system. Trails into Reverie is unique in the Kiseki series as it is presented from the perspective of 3 different main characters, Lloyd, Rain, and C. And the cross-story system is a system that, for the most part, lets you swap between them whenever you want. Swapping is really easy, as all you need to do is press right on the directional button to bring up the cross-story menu, and from there you can jump between the 3 different characters' perspectives. And while the system itself is simple, there are quite a few things to keep in mind. First, each route is broken up into sections. Think of it like Chapter 1 Part 1, Chapter 1 Part 2, and so on. You can swap between these sections midway through without losing any progress. However, you can't use the cross-story system to go back to previous sections of the story. Another important thing to note is that you will need to see all 3 routes to complete the main story. That being said, you also can't just focus on one character's route at a time. There will be points in the game where a character's route will be blocked from progressing until you've progressed a different character's route further along. There are even instances in which you will be swapping back and forth between the different routes in rapid succession as the events of the story unfold. Early on, each route will have its own separate inventory, and for the most of the game, each route will also have access to different characters to use in battle. What this means is that, for example, whatever items, quartz, money, etc. that you have access to on, say, Rain's route, will not be available to you on either Lloyd or C's route, and characters like Arisa or Machias won't be usable on either Rain or C's routes as they are part of Lloyd's route instead. However, as you work your way through each character's route, they will eventually gain access to the Revery Corridor, and it is at this point that their inventories do become shared. Characters, however, will still be locked to their respective routes. I'll walk you through the Revery Corridor shortly, but for now, let's briefly go over what has changed with the battle system in Reverie. This section on the battle system is going to be pretty short, as there hasn't been a whole lot of changes coming from Cold Steel 4. For the most part, it's actually largely the same. And because of that, I'm not going to go in depth on all the aspects of the battle system, since you really shouldn't be starting with Reverie as your first Kiseki title anyways. But to quickly sum up the smaller changes, the max BP available to you can be increased to 8 now, character crafts, arts, quartz, and brave orders have all received balancing adjustments, you can no longer hit 0 delay, there are now higher rank versions of many quartz, accessories, and equipment, most master quartz now have an accompanying twin version in a different element, master quartz can now also be leveled up to 15, and once you gain access to the Reverie Corridor, you can gain access to the ability to use brave orders of up to 2 characters from any route, so long as they aren't currently assigned to another route's main party or support. The biggest change though, or rather addition to the battle system in Reverie is the Valiant Rage system. When dealing damage, taking damage, and defeating enemies, you will be rewarded with charges located in the lower right hand corner of the screen, and these charges can be used on one of 3 Valiant Rage abilities. Hold R2 while you have sufficient charges, and your normal craft, arts, and attack buttons will turn into V Heal, V Arts, and V Attack. V Heal will heal all of your party members, apply a defense and magic defense buff to everyone, and cure all status ailments. V Arts will do magic damage to all enemies, restore everyone's EP, apply an ATS buff to everyone, and cure any seal magic debuffs and stat penalties on all party members. And finally, V Attack will do physical damage to all enemies, restore everyone's CP, apply a strength buff to everyone, and cure any seal physical debuffs and stat penalties on all party members. Additionally, using Valiant Rage will also restore up to 3 BP. The last thing I'd like to touch on before we move on to the Reverie Corridor is with regards to difficulty settings, as some interesting options have been added for anyone looking for a challenge. Trails into Reverie added a few options for increasing the difficulty that can drastically change the power balance between characters and how you approach enemy encounters. The first of which is the addition of the Abyss difficulty. Abyss is harder than Nightmare, and the jump in difficulty from Nightmare to Abyss is much larger than going from very hard to Nightmare. In addition to Abyss difficulty, the option to increase the levels of all enemies by either plus 50 or plus 100 was also added. All of these options are available from the beginning, and if you're someone who enjoys a nice challenge, then I would highly recommend savoring the challenge that Abyss and enemy level scaling provides while you can. The Reverie Corridor becomes available to each main character as you progress through the story, and after your initial trip, you can return anytime you like by accessing the Reverie Corridor from the cross-story menu. While in the Reverie Corridor, you will have access to all characters who are part of a route that has gained access to it. Additionally, there are also 10 other characters you can gain access to over the course of the game that can only be used in the Reverie Corridor. However, you can gain the ability to use their brave orders during the main story. But to better walk you through the Reverie Corridor, I'm going to turn it over to Unscripted Roz. Alright, so I thought it would be best for this section to go ahead and just do a guided walkthrough, just based on how the Reverie Corridor is sorted out. So when you first gain access, you will come in through this portal. This is also how you leave the first time. After that, you can just teleport in and out through the cross-story menu, which I cannot bring up right now, as it will spoil the identity of C. But just letting you know, that is how you can come in and out. As you progress through the game, the party members who have gained access to this place will be just chilling, talking to different people, who they're talking to, where they're situated within the corridor, and what they have to say will change based on where you are in the main story. The important part for this first section, though, is this little sphere right here. Clicking on it will bring up this menu, and for this menu, the first one to talk about is probably this one right here. This is your missions. So you have 2 different types of missions. You have limited missions and master missions. The limited missions, they're limited. Once you do them, they go away, they're randomized, you can reset them basically infinitely, and they're here to farm materials, essentially. The main one being the Reverie, I guess they'll probably call them something like Reverie Crystal or Reverie Fragments. They're these little purple things above me, these little purple fragments. But they're for farming this, and they have different things like destroy 12 break objects when you're in the Reverie Corridor, or take no damage for 4 encounters and whatnot. The important one is really the master missions. So if I go over to the cleared master missions, this is where you get your RP. RP, the point system that a lot of Kiseki games have. This is where you get it. And the different things can be like clear the first floor, clear the second floor, clear the third floor. There's a whole bunch of them. You get a ton of these points, and They also give you, in addition to the RP points and the little crystals, you also get other rewards like accessories and quartz and whatnot. And with those purple crystals, you can spend them on this menu here. So once you have collected most of the stuff in the game, you can get stuff like Zerum powder, Zerum capsules. You can get these items here with it, which are the items to boost your character's stats or to level up your character. What you'll want to spend it on the most at the beginning are stuff like this. So gaining access to more support characters, gaining access to higher BP levels. This is how you increase the amount of BP you have access to, increase the amount of assault gauge you have access to, allow you to bring 2 extra characters. The extra character meaning that you can have 2 characters who aren't in your party, but you can use their brave order in battle. That's what this is for, and whatnot. This upgrades a tree. We'll talk about that in a minute when we go upstairs. But this is where you basically unlock a bunch of the different functionality of the game. You can also unlock opponents for the different mini games here. So for Palm Party opponents, Vantage Masters opponents, you get that here as well. The RP section here, this is the RP report. This is where you report your RP and you get your rewards. Very similar to other Kiseki titles. You just do this whenever you want. It's not like at the end of the chapter like in past titles. You just do this whenever you want when you have access to the Revery Corridor. This next one right here, I'm not going to go ahead and click it because it'll kick me out of the menu, kind of annoyingly. But this will reset the Revery Corridor's dungeon. So the dungeon is semi-randomized. There is a lot of things that are preset about it, like what bosses you fight, what types of enemies you fight on each floor, and whatnot. But the layout and treasure and all that is completely, well, mostly randomized. And this will reset it. So if you go through the dungeon and then you want to go through again, you come here, you click this, it'll reset everything, you can go through again. And this last option right here, this will reset those limited missions. So the missions that I said right here that are, randomized, that are just limited time, that will reset them. So if you don't like any of the ones here, or if you need more of them, you click this, it'll go ahead and reset that for you. So now let's just go upstairs, which you can go up to the left or the right. We'll talk about this center section here at the end, since that's what takes you to the actual dungeon. But for now, let's go up here to the right. Alright, sorry for that transition there, but I had to come up and view it from this angle. There is a potential spoiler character who's kind of sitting right to my character's back left. I don't think it's necessarily a spoiler, but it's a character whose identity I can't hide like I can with C, so you have to forgive me. But generally, the stairs that are kind of right in front of where I'm pointing right now, that's where you'll come up if you actually use the stairs. Again, you can teleport here, though. So on the second floor right here, if you want to, you can go ahead and fish right here. This is where you fish in the game. And this is that tree I was going to tell you about that you can upgrade. This tree will basically heal you. And it starts off not fully healing you, but once it's fully healed, so whenever you spend those purple crystals, you can eventually get it to heal you, and it'll heal your HP, EP, CP, BP, and your assault gauge all the way up to max. That's what that is for. And then if we kind of come over here, still avoiding that character chilling over there, this is your Vantage Masters table. The first time you want to play an opponent against Vantage Masters, you actually have to walk up to them and be like, hey, let's play Vantage Masters, and then you play them. After that, they will appear here, and you can click on here, and you can go to the list of opponents, and just in case anybody speaks Japanese, I'm not going to click on this because it'll have 2 characters spoiled, but this will be to where you bring up the list of people you can play against, and you play against them. This lets you look at all the cards you've unlocked. This one lets you build your deck. The other important thing in this little part of the upstairs is this right here. This is all your mini games. This is Magical Audis RS. This is basically a bullet hell shooter type mini game. It's very easy, not a whole lot going on to it. This is the Beach Vacation. We'll actually dive into this one in a second because there's a bit more involved with this one. This is the in Japanese it's Kiseki de Pon. It's basically the trivia thing. You get trivia questions, you have a certain amount of time to answer them, answer a bunch of them correctly, and the allotted time, you get rewards. Next one is Project Tierfing S. This minigame is it's supposed to be a mech battle minigame. It should be a crime against humanity how bad the controls are for this minigame. This minigame is absolutely horrendous, but yeah, that's what this is. Then you have Palm Party, and you have Vantage Masters. It should be noted that both Palm Party and Vantage Masters had extra DLC stuff added to them. This one here specifically It was added in extra DLC. It's free DLC. It will probably be part of the base game, but it has a bunch of really tough opponents that you can play in Vantage Masters. But now that we've done that, let's go into the beach vacation so I can showcase that. All right, so here's the beach vacation mini game, or it's a collection of 3 mini games you can play. There's a little bit of story to it. It has to deal with a vacation that Reen and everybody from basically the Cold Steel games take here to Michelin. But the 3 things you can do here, you have a mini game here, then you have 2 down here on the beach. Obviously, you can also talk to your party members if you want to. You need a ticket to play the mini games. The tickets, you can see my count up in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. You get these by going through the dungeon, and you also can eventually purchase them from a store that we'll get to. I believe it's with U material. But of the 3 mini games, let's start with this one right here. So this mini game right here allows you to basically do a date with one of the potential characters of your choosing that Reen can actually romance in Cold Steel 4. You click here, you choose which character you want to go on your little date with, and then you'll do like a little dating event with them where you can talk to them, awkwardly look at them, try to please them, and you get like little accessories that can be equipped as like cosmetic stuff for that character at the end. The other one you can do is this boat riding event right here, or like you follow along on that boat pulls you along and you're on this little banana buoy thing. You basically just have to, kind of balance on there, follow the course, don't fall off, go to the very end. You can unlock a bunch of the cosmetic swimsuits from doing this. So that's what that's for. And then the last one is this one over here. This is sort of a timing mini game. You will choose one of your party members to play it against. And what you'll do is you'll have this little timing section where you have to time things right and try to break the watermelon, a very Japanese pastime that they do a lot in the summer. So that's what you do here on the beach vacation. There are a bunch of trophies associated with this place if that's what you're into. But let's get back to the actual Reverie Corridor now. All right, back in the corridor. Let's go ahead and walk around here, avoiding that character so not to spoil them. And now we can make our way this way. So this door right here, you can click on, will give you access to trials. This is very reminiscent of the different trial chests you can complete in the Cold Steel series and whatnot, where you have a couple characters that are preset and at preset levels, or you have to be at the set level at least. You take on the trial, win the trial, you get upgrades to your crafts and S-crafts and whatnot. That's what this is. Like this first one, you have to be level 114 with Lloyd and Kurt, then they'll take on in a battle, win the battle, you get some upgrades for them. That's what all this stuff is. Alright, so moving on, let's go to the last little section here. So this big orb thing you see here, this is the gacha system. I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to talking about the actual dungeon itself, but suffice to say, it's not a normal gacha you're used to. You don't pay any money. All the currency is gained from going through the bonus dungeon, and the things that you might want to, you'll actually care about, like the additional characters, the story events, and the mini games, which do come from the gacha, are not entirely random. There is a method to getting every one of them, and the material that is specifically needed to get those is finite. You can't not get a character. It is not like a Xenoblade 2 situation, so don't worry about that. It's not that bad, but this is the gacha thing. If anything, look at it as a bonus to get way more materials than you could ever hope to need. All right, so let's talk about these 2 pedestals then. These are basically your shops for the Reverie Corridor. This one on the right here, let's go ahead and start here. This is where you can buy your weapons, you can buy armor and whatnot. I believe you can buy accessories from this one. Yeah, you can buy accessories from this one, base level accessories and whatnot. This isn't the good stuff, but it will help you out as you're playing through the game. This next section here, this is where you buy like battle items and some food and stuff like that if you want to do some cooking. You can also buy U material fragments specifically, but you shouldn't really ever need to do this. It's also outrageously expensive. This is cosmetic and some Vantage Masters cards. So you can buy Vantage Masters cards and you can buy some cosmetic stuff for a lot of your characters if you want to. Here is the exchange shop, exchange for more battle items and whatnot. Here we can exchange for accessories. And then here you can exchange for quartz, ancient magic quartz, all sorts of stuff. So this is all where you do all your exchange and high level crafting that you're going to do to make your characters as strong as they can possibly be. And then here, this is the shop where you can go to get like stuff you missed from a chest, or for whatever reason, stuff that you still got from a chest but randomly shows up here anyways, because bugs are bugs. But yeah, that's where you get this stuff from. And then the left one over here is where you can do your orbments. So this is where you can make base level quartz that you can then use to do other fusions and stuff to make higher level quartz. This is where you can open slots and improve your slots for your different characters. The slots can be improved up to rank 3 in this game. You can buy covers and equip different covers for your characters if you are into that. And then obviously you have the exchange if you want to make some money. This one right here, this is where you can get the ultimate weapons and armor. So it has it for a bunch of people, basically everybody in the game, obviously. And then you can get like the Zemiria fragments right here. And essentially this is where you can upgrade to get the best weapons, the best armor, and the character-specific accessories. I may do an entire video on this, so let me know down in the comment section if you want, but yeah, each character has their own specific unique accessory that they can gain access to. For example, Reen's here gives him 300 strength and defense, 30 speed, 100% increased CP generation, and 10 CP per turn. These are basically the best accessories for that given character. But yeah, this is where you would exchange for that. This is where you can improve your quartz. So you can make higher level versions of the different, base level quartz in the game. So, you have like hit, this lets you make hit 2, hit 3, that sort of thing. Impede 2, impede 3, and whatnot. And then this right here is where you can break down items and weapons and stuff you don't need anymore for U material. Rest in peace, the infinite money glitch that was in the 1.0 version of this game that is no longer here. This is the system that basically got that glitch removed or patched out, but you can still kind of use this, but again, you don't really need to, but it's here if you want to. You can just get a bunch of U material from selling away your old stuff. And then the final important thing before we move on to the actual dungeon component is this. This is the story events. So this is where you will get, this is where the epilogue part of Trails into Reverie comes in. This basically tells everything that happens between the events of Cold Steel 4 and Trails into Reverie, and some of it is stuff that takes place after, but it involves a bunch of different characters. For the most part, this is all just cutscene stuff. You just watch it, read the dialogue, get the story. There are a few of them that have a couple dungeons in them, and there are some fights and whatnot, but the vast majority of it is just story component. And then it's at the very end here that you get the 2 stuff that lead into the next game, Kuro no Kiseki. So, and these appear after you beat the game. So that's what all this is for. This is kind of the side content. And yeah, that's where you get all that. All right, so back here at the entrance, we can come over here, and this is where you will enter the dungeon portion of the Reverie Corridor for the first time. This is also where I should go ahead and tell you that you can hit square to bring up this menu, which can allow you to teleport to the different areas in the Reverie Corridor, as well as teleport to the different floors in the Reverie Corridor. Though the first time you go, you do need to go through this little area right here. But anyways, we can talk about this. So, Reverie Corridor. Initially, you will have 4 floors to it. This will be what you have access to as you play through the main story. It's not all available to you at first. You get access to different floors as you play through the main story. The first floor has 2 sections. The second floor and on all have 4 sections to them. You basically have the entrance, then you have the center section where there's like a mini boss fight, the second half, and the final section where there is a full boss fight, and then that lets you move on to the next floor. Once you beat the game, you gain access to floors 5 through 8, and this is all post-game stuff. This also has its own little post-game story. An important thing to note here that we can see, and this ties back into the gacha system, if you can see over on the lower right-hand corner of the screen, you see these little crystals. So these crystals are basically what give you the various characters, the various minigames, and those story events. There are a finite number of them, like I said. Anytime you defeat a rare enemy or a mini boss or a boss, there will be a chance that one of these will drop. Each floor has a specific number of them that can drop, and then there are 5 that are completely random. So if you look here in the lower right hand corner, this is floor 1. Throughout floor 1, you can get 1 gold, 2 blue, and 1 red. And then there are 5 random that can appear, like I said, anywhere throughout the entire Reverie Corridor. The gold ones represent a character. So once you get a gold crystal, you can take it to the little gacha thing, and you can pull for a character. This is not fully random. Basically, depending on where you are in the game, there will be a set pool of characters that can potentially be pulled. And as you progress further, more characters will be added to that pool. Initially, there are only 3 characters that you can potentially pull from. So once you go here for the first time, you'll get 1 crystal. You can pull one of those 3 characters. When you come back later and you go to floor 2, you'll get another one. This has 1 more gold. It'll allow you to get another character, and so forth. The same can be said for the blue crystals. The blue crystals are the episodes, those story events, and then the red crystals are the mini games. I would not worry about it too much, but if you want a video guide on like which characters appear when and whatnot, and maybe how to game the system to get a specific character you want, let me know. I can potentially make a video on that as well. But now we got it out the way, let's actually go in and talk about the Reverie Corridor itself, the dungeon portion that is. Alright, so back to scripted RAWs. As I said, the dungeon sections of the Reverie Corridor are semi-random. Basically, their layouts will be randomized, but the potential enemy spawns, the bosses, etc. are not. You will also begin to notice patterns, as while the layouts, including where the chests spawn, are randomized, the number of tile sets from which this can happen is relatively low. There are a few things to watch out for though while exploring the Reverie Corridor. The 2 primary ones to look out for are gates and sealed chests. Gates basically bring you to a new sort of temporary floor, complete with enemies not found in the rest of the Reverie Corridor, including rare enemies and of course more chests. Just think of these as an extension of whatever floor you are currently working through. As for the sealed chests, these are a bit more cumbersome to deal with. When you interact with the seal, a menu will pop up showing the enemies you'll face and assign you a random team of 8 party members who are not currently in your active party or support. Initially, you can't change who is selected, but you do eventually gain the ability to make a set number of swaps. Either way, the goal is to win the encounter with these other party members. Luckily, you can equip them beforehand from this menu, and assuming that you win the fight, you will gain access to the chests. Finally, the last thing to really note about the dungeon section of the Reverie Corridor is with regards to special areas. Basically, some floors will have areas covered in either darkness, fire, electricity, whatever. In these sections, your characters will receive permanent debuffs for the duration of any enemy encounters you engage in while in these areas, though the debuffs can be mitigated by the use of accessories that prevent them. Other than that, the dungeon section of the Reverie Corridor is pretty simple and not much different from when the Reverie Corridor popped up before in the Cold Steel series. The gacha currency though does come from the Reverie Corridor's dungeon portion as well, so if you are hunting for characters, story events, or minigames, be sure to fight all of the rare spawn monsters and mini-bosses in order to get those crystals. And that will do it for everything you need to know about Trails into Reverie. I do plan to put out videos showcasing the characters on each main character's route, along with build advice for them, but if there are any other types of videos you want to see, let me know in the comment section below. And as always, if you found this video helpful and informative, please be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Also, if you have any questions about this video, Trails into Reverie, or any other game that I cover, you can hit me up over on Twitch at twitch.tv/RoslinGaming, or my Discord server, both of which are linked in the video description below. Until next time, take care.